All right, so are you ready to jump into a deep dive today on something you might not have thought about?
Hmm.
We're going to be talking about phlebotomy as a career path.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so it might sound a little niche at first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you first hear it, it's like, oh, drawing blood,
Right.
But we're going to talk about why it could actually be a really strategic first step,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're an internationally trained healthcare professional and
Yeah.
you're looking to work here in Canada.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. And it is interesting, isn't it? Because we often get so focused on like that dream job
Right.
that we kind of overlook these maybe smaller roles that are
Yeah.
really fantastic stepping stones.
Exactly.
And for someone who's kind of navigating a new healthcare system, phlebotomy can be a really savvy move.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we've got some excerpts from an article here that's all about phlebotomy as a career path.
Okay.
And one thing that really jumped out at me was this idea of it being an accessible pathway. So in what ways is it more accessible than, say, becoming a doctor or a nurse here?
Well, think about the timeline.
Okay.
If you want to become a doctor or a nurse in Canada, it requires years and years of specialized training, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you've got the added hurdle of having to get your international credentials recognized.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of hoops to jump through.
Totally.
But phlebotomy,
Yeah.
it can be a much quicker route.
Okay.
Often, less than a year of training is all you really need.
Wow, that's a huge difference,
It is.
especially if you're, really eager to start working
Yeah,
and getting that Canadian experience under your belt.
exactly.
But what about the experience itself?
Oh,
I mean, healthcare is usually all about what you've already done.
you would
you-
think so?
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
Phlebotomy often doesn't require you to have prior Canadian medical experience,
Oh.
and that's huge.
Yeah, that's a game changer.
Yeah. For those internationally trained professionals who are kind of in that holding pattern, waiting to get recertified,
Right.
it means that they can actually start working and earning an income right away
Oh, yeah.
while they're navigating that more complex licensing process for their original profession.
Okay, so someone who was a doctor, say in their home country, but they can't practice here yet,
Uh-huh.
phlebotomy could be that thing that helps them bridge that gap.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a way to stay connected to healthcare, keep those skills sharp,
Yeah.
and demonstrate their commitment to working in Canada.
Oh, that's so smart.
Plus,
Yeah.
and this is where I think the strategic element comes in.
Okay.
Canada is facing a significant healthcare worker shortage right now.
Right. So
So-
there's actually a demand for phlebotomists.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that translates into job security for phlebotomists.
Okay.
And it could even open up faster pathways to immigration. Some provinces have immigration streams that are specifically geared towards healthcare workers.
I had no idea that phlebotomy could have such a ripple effect.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
it's pretty cool.
Okay, but let's be honest, right?
Okay.
Some people might hear the word phlebotomist and they think like dead-end job,
Yeah. Right.
Is that a fair assessment?
Not at all.
Okay.
No, it's more like a launch pad.
Okay.
So, imagine starting as a phlebotomist.
Yeah.
And then while you're working, you're studying to become a medical lab technician.
Oh.
Or even using it as a stepping stone towards nursing or healthcare administrations. It's all about strategy.
So it's not just about drawing blood, it's about drawing a roadmap to your future.
Exactly.
That's a good one. I like that.
I like that.
Okay, well, what about the salary then?
Okay.
What can someone realistically expect to earn as a phlebotomist here in Canada?
Let's look at the numbers.
Okay.
According to Indeed, the average hourly wage for phlebotomists is around $24.07. And the Government of Canada's Job Bank says it's between $18 to $37.81 per hour,
Okay.
with a median wage of $26.35.
Okay, so that's a pretty decent spread.
It is, yeah.
What kind of factors into that difference?
Well, location is a big one.
Okay.
For example, British Columbia has a median hourly wage of $26.
Okay.
Alberta comes in a bit higher at $28.62,
Uh-huh.
and Quebec tops it off at $29.80.
Okay, so location really does matter.
It does.
If someone is thinking about doing this as a way to get their foot in the door,
Right.
they should really factor that in.
Absolutely. But remember, there's more to consider than just that starting salary.
Oh, yeah.
Think about your long-term goals
Yeah.
and what kind of career trajectory you envision.
Right.
Phlebotomy can be that first step.
First strategic step.
Yeah, but where you go from there is really up to you.
I love that.
Yeah, it really is like taking a step back to take 2 steps forward sometimes.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive, but sometimes those less obvious paths not
Right.
actually the ones that get you there faster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the case of phlebotomy, it's not just the speed, it's the skills you gain along the way, too.
Right, the experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the sources mentioned that the average annual salary for a phlebotomist here in Canada
Okay.
is around $44,850.
Wow.
Yeah, that's according to talent.com.
Okay.
So that's a pretty solid foundation to build on.
It is.
And we can't forget about those other benefits
Right.
that don't necessarily show up on a pay stub, right?
Absolutely.
Like the article talked about how working as a phlebotomist can really help newcomers adapt to the Canadian healthcare system.
Right.
You're interacting with patients, doctors, nurses, everyone.
Yeah, you're right in the thick of it.
Yeah, you're not just like learning the technical skills, but you're
Wow.
like in the environment.
Exactly. You're picking up on the language, the procedures, the workplace culture,
Right.
all those things that are so crucial for building a career in a new country. It's like an on-the-job cultural immersion program.
I love that. Yeah, that's such a great point.
Yeah.
So we've talked about accessibility, the demand,
Mm.
the immigration opportunities, the career progression, the salary,
Yeah.
and now even like cultural adaptation.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's clear that phlebotomy is more than meets the eye.
It really does. And I think it really challenges those assumptions we have about, what a good job is.
Right.
And it highlights that strategic thinking when it comes to career planning.
Yeah?
Sometimes those most unexpected routes
Yeah.
are the ones that take us to the most amazing destinations.
I love. Okay, so for our listeners out there who are internationally trained healthcare professionals and they're considering their options here in Canada,
Right.
what would you say is the key takeaway for them?
Don't underestimate the power of that strategic stepping stone. Phlebotomy, it gives you that practical, hands-on way to enter the Canadian healthcare system, gain experience, and really open doors to a wider range of possibilities down the road.
So it's more than just drawing blood. It's about drawing a roadmap to your future success.
Exactly. I like that one, too.
I like that one too.
Yeah,
All right, this has been so insightful.
it has been.
It's amazing how a deep dive into something like phlebotomy can really shift your perspective on career paths
Totally.
and the power of strategic thinking, right?
Yeah.
Big thanks to you for sharing these valuable insights with us,
My pleasure.
and to all of you out there for joining us on this journey of discovery.
Yes. Thank you for listening.
So for all our listeners out there, what final thought would you leave them with today?
Yeah, it really has. And, before we started this, I never would have thought about phlebotomy as a career path,
Right.
But now looking at it this way, it's like,
Uh-huh.
it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's a good reminder that we often put limitations on ourselves,
Yeah.
with these preconceived notions we have about certain jobs.
Yeah. But when we really look at things and understand the context a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
we can discover all this hidden potential
Right.
and these pathways that we never even thought about before.
Yeah.
And especially for internationally trained healthcare professionals,
Yeah.
phlebotomy offers this way to get your foot in the door.
Right.
Get that Canadian experience and then
Oh, right.
really build that foundation for a thriving career.
Absolutely. And it's like, bloom where you're planted. It's
Yeah.
like instead of focusing on what you can't do,
Yeah.
focus on what you can do
Sure.
and use that as a stepping stone to
Right.
get to where you want to be.
Okay, so to kind of wrap things up here,
Okay.
would you say that phlebotomy is a viable pathway to a fulfilling and successful career here in Canada?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's practical, it's strategic, and it's often overlooked,
Yeah.
especially for those internationally trained healthcare professionals.
Right.
And, beyond just the kind of practical side of things,
Yeah.
it's also about resilience.
Yeah.
Adaptability and embracing that journey.
Yeah.
Because sometimes those paths that are the most rewarding are the ones that we least expect.
I love that. Well, this has been fantastic.
That has been fun.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all these insights.
My pleasure.
And to all of you out there for listening and being a part of this.
Yes, thank you.
Until next time, keep those minds curious and those pathways open. Happy exploring.
Absolutely.